So I'm not even gonna think about this video too long, porque si no, I'm not even gonna do it. We're back. Honestly though, I feel like I can't even talk. I'm going to talk about my horrible, I'm just kidding, it wasn't horrible, but it was pretty bad. My labor story with Ellie, and mind you, I'm not a doctor, so if I say something wrong, my bad. I'm just gonna talk about how my experience went and how because of her I would never have kids again. And I'm serious. It's not really just because of the labor, but ever since her, like, I'm scared to go through labor. And not just that, she's a handful. I'm just gonna like do my makeup again. I'm not a makeup artist, so don't judge my makeup skills because I ain't got none, and don't judge my doctor skills because I ain't got none either. So anyways, let's just start with the fact that my pregnancy was hard with her. I was sick, I was tired, I was sleepy, I was mad, I didn't like Daniel whatsoever. Sorry Daniel, I love you now. It was bad. It was, I mean, I do stop saying it was bad because it could have been a lot worse, but it was pretty bad. I fainted bad once, and it was just scary because like I fell and I was by myself. Sebastian was with me, but you know, I was by myself. It was scary. I had to go to the hospital. I was in there for freaking hours just being observed. I went to the hospital a couple times. I got in a car accident on my birthday while I was pregnant and I was in the hospital. And so yeah, it was just, you know, crazy. So it was pretty scary. So then comes her birth. She wouldn't freaking come. I was so eager to get her out. Sebastian was 2 weeks early. She was 2 days before her due date. I was 39 weeks and what is it, 5 days, about to be 40 weeks. And we were sleeping and it was like 4 in the morning and I had to pee because at this point my like area was just so much in pain. I was swollen. I was she was like super low and it was just awful. It was so awful. So it was 4 in the morning and I had to pee, so I got up and I was laying down, and as I like came up I just felt like wet, like stuff was coming out, and I was like, uh-oh. And so I got up to go use the restroom, and yeah, it was just a lot of liquid. Like, to me it was my water, but like I'm gonna say later, when I was in the hospital that I got there, I told them, I was like, I think my water is breaking. Us that I get to the hospital and I told them I think my water is breaking, and because I had like even put on a pad and stuff because it just like if I coughed, if I sneezed, anything that was coming out. And they're like, okay, well, let's test it. So we get in, they test it, they check me. I had gone to the doctor the day before and I was at nothing. I think I was at like almost a 1. So I was like and they tested it and she checked me and I was at almost a 3, I think it was, around. But I would get the contractions like, I think they were about every 7-ish minutes. They weren't too close, but I was just scared because I thought it was my water. So I was like, nope, let's go. And this was already like 5 in the morning. So we got ready, we went. I had to call my mom to go stay with my son, and so we left to the hospital and we get there. They test it. Wow, I'm going all over the place. I should have written this down, but you know, I'm not a YouTuber. And so they check me. I was almost at a 3, and then they check my water and she's like, so that's not your water breaking, that could just be discharge. I was like, homegirl, this isn't discharge. No, doesn't feel like you peed yourself. Okay, maybe a little bit, but not like that. And so she's like, but since you're having back-to-back contractions, we're gonna keep you until your doctor comes in at 8 and we'll see what he says, blah blah blah. Anyways, let's fast forward because this part's boring. They kept me because my contractions started going back to back, and so they took me to my room because once my doctor got there, they said they were gonna break my water. I was 2 days before, so they're like, yeah, we'll just break her water, keep her, monitor her, whatever. So then I didn't want an epidural. And with Sebastian, I had one. To me, it was kind of like, I don't know, I don't know what to do. Like, yeah, give it to me. But with Sebastian, I didn't want it even still. Because I remember when Daniel was in there, I started crying to him because I was like, I don't want an epidural. And I was like super upset that I was even getting one. But anyways, this isn't Sebastian's birth story. Sorry, baby. His was, honestly, his was beautiful. Everything was beautiful. My pregnancy was beautiful. Everything. Little Ellie was the bad one. So I didn't want an epidural this time. I was like, I want to try it without. Like, I can do it. It's okay. Like, I'm gonna be fine. So Daniel was like, okay, if that's what you want. We got to our room. I'm being monitored, and then the nurse comes in and she's like, okay, so the doctor's gonna come in a little bit, and he's gonna pop your water, so that it can speed up the labor process. I was like, okay, Gucci. But I got a little bit scared because I was like, oh, what is that gonna feel like? Because with Sebastian, they accidentally popped it, so it didn't hurt. And so she's like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, he's just gonna get this stick and just like go in and pop it. And I was like, am I gonna feel that? She's like, yeah, you'll be totally fine. I was like, oh my gosh. So I started getting a little nervous there. And then on top of that, she's like, well, she's like, we are having a little bit of an issue because as I was getting contractions, they started to notice that she wasn't coming down. Like, you get a contraction and the baby, I'm not a doctor, is supposed to go down, right? Like, to come out. No, little Miss Ellie was pushing up. So literally every time I got a contraction, you could see like up here, like you could see her little feet, like not her feet, I'm just kidding, but you could see that she was coming up. And so I was like, what the heck? So she's like, yeah, so when the doctor comes in, we're gonna try to see how to move her. And I was like, hello, what does that mean? Like, no, I don't want that. And they were also going to put in, I guess, I never had this with Sebastian, but I guess now they put in this like little monitor that tracks them and tracks the contractions from inside. And I was like, am I gonna feel that? I always ask stupid questions like that, but man, I wanted to know. She's like, it'll just be uncomfortable. I was like, oh my gosh. So I started to get nervous, and then my contractions started to get a little bad, and I was only at almost 4. So I was like, oh my gosh, like this isn't gonna go by fast. This is making me nervous. So I was like, I want the epidural. Like, I want it. And I remember my best friend was in there, Cece, and I was like, don't let me get the epidural. But when she looked at me, I was just like, girl, don't even right now. Like, because she was pregnant, and I was like, girl, you pregnant, you're gonna be here soon. Let me do what I want to do. But so I was like, I want the epidural. And I also had a student nurse that was in there, and they asked me in the beginning if I minded that she was there, which I didn't care. No, she was really nice. And so the anesthesiologist comes in, and this is where it starts to get a little bit like, so he came in, and he obviously was explaining everything to me, had me sign the paperwork, told me, you have to sit still, don't move, this and that. I was like, okay, cool. Well, when he went back to do the epidural, I was sitting down, the nurse was in front of me. The whole time he was doing it, he was talking to the girl. I didn't even put concealer on. What a babosa. He was talking to the student nurse. He was testing her. Like, he was like, if this and this, what about that? If this and that, what about that? And she was answering, and I was a little bit like, hello, like, you're back there, like, shut the fuck up. And I remember Daniel got annoyed at that, and I was like, oh, be nice, he's just helping her, she's the student, like, it's okay. And he was like, whatever, okay. He didn't like that though. So the whole time he was talking to her, but whatever. So then he's in, like, I could feel that he's in, and I'm getting a contraction, and then I don't know, he started pushing the like medicine or whatever, and I was like, I kind of like moved a little bit, and he was like, oh, no, you can't move. And I was like, no, that hurts. Because I remembered with Sebastian that it didn't hurt, and he's like, oh wait, what, you feel that? And I was like, yes, it hurts, it feels like you're scratching me. And he's like, okay, I'm coming out, don't move. So he took it out and he was like, okay, this is the problem. And I had, when the nurse sat me down, she sat me, I don't know, I mean, it's like, it's the bed and then there's like that crease in between, like where your feet kind of go. Well, I sat right there, so I was supposed to be like super straight, but I was just a little bit like this, like I wasn't completely straight. So he's like, okay, he's like, we need to reposition you, you need to sit super straight, you can't sit like this, and I'm gonna go back in. And I was like, oh. So he was gonna do it all over again. So then I have the epidural in, and you know, my labor starts to speed up. I think I got it around 10 and I had her around 12. This all started happening probably like 10 minutes before I gave birth to her. And so I'm getting, we're just chilling and waiting for her to come out. And then I start getting a headache. Mind you, I get really bad migraines, like awful, to where, you know, I have to like sleep for them to go away and I throw up and it's awful. Well, I started to get a headache, and I mean, I had been there since 5 in the morning, so I was like, oh, it's probably because I haven't eaten. So my nurse comes in and I told her, I was like, I'm not feeling very good, I have a headache. And she's like, oh no, it's probably because you haven't eaten. She's like, it's almost time, do you want some Tylenol? And I was like, no, I'm okay, like it's just a headache, I get migraines, I'm fine. So then she's like, okay. Not even probably like 10 minutes later, and honestly a lot of this is a blur, so Cece, if you're watching this, correct me in the comments. I'm just kidding, don't do that. Probably 5 minutes later it starts to get worse, like a lot worse. And I was like, okay, I don't feel good. And then I think by then she was like about to come back in, but I was like, Daniel, go get the nurse, like I need that medicine, I don't feel good. He's like, okay. Well, as soon as she comes in, I start throwing up. Like I have to throw up so bad, and I start throwing up, and I feel so bad. Sorry, Cece, but I was super mean. Like, and I remember they were like, her and Daniel were watching me, and I was like, don't look at me, cause like I'm throwing up. Like I don't want people staring at me throw up. And so I'm throwing up, and then she's like, you know what, let's check you, maybe you're ready. It could just be from all the hormones that the baby's already pushing down and you're probably not feeling it. Which actually I also forgot to add that during this whole time they had me with the peanut ball between my legs for her to come down. Well, from as soon as they gave me the epidural, she put the peanut ball between my legs and she sat me to the side. Well, even she said that the epidural probably all scooted down to one side, so I felt everything on my right side. Like I felt the contractions. It was like a split down the middle. I felt the contractions on my right side, and I felt the pain down there a little bit too. So I was like and I remember I told her that, so she scooted me to the other side. That didn't help. I felt that through the whole labor. Like I felt half of my labor. And so she's like, let's check you. So she checks me and she's like, oh, okay, you're ready to push. I was like, okay, thank God, it's because I'm ready to push, like thank God. And then the doctor comes in, everything's fine. I still have the headache and I'm trying to like just push through it. I'm like, don't think about it, don't think about it, don't think about it. I have Ellie and I'm like, okay, the headache's gonna go away now. Like now it'll go away, good. Well, I have her and they're checking her, they take out my placenta, they do all the dandy stuff. I get the headache again, and like as soon as she leaves, I asked for her to come back and I told her like my headache is still there and it's really bad. She's like, okay, well, do you want some morphine? And I was like, yes, give me morphine. Like I wanted to breastfeed my baby, so I was like, wait, is it gonna hurt her? She's like, no, it's perfectly fine. Okay, they give me morphine, starts to go away a little bit, so I'm feeling a little better. Probably 10 minutes later I throw up again, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it was so awful, like the throwing up, the headache, everything. So then it's as time still goes by and it's to the point where my headache is still there, and she comes in and the epidural is already going away. So she's like, well, as soon as the epidural starts to go away, she's like, I'm gonna need you to walk. And I was like, no, like I'm not walking like this, I don't feel good. So she's like, well, I'll come in and I'll help you, maybe you need to get up, this and that. It's always maybe this, maybe that. I was like, okay. So, which I loved my nurse, she was awesome. But she comes in and she's like, okay, let's get you up to go to the bathroom. I was like, okay. So I'm laying down, so I was fine. I get up and I literally couldn't walk. I had my eyes closed. I was just like, okay, let's go. I'm holding on to her. We're walking to the bathroom and I start crying, like legit just crying and crying. I was like, I can't walk. My head hurts so bad. I'm gonna fall. I'm gonna throw up. She's like, okay, well, I have to clean you. She's like, so let's sit down. She sits me down. She's like, you know what? And then she like stops and looks at me and she's like, do you think this is from the epidural? I'm like, girl, are you asking me why I think I feel like this? And I was funny because I was starting to think that. And honestly, like, I did think that a little bit. And she's like, yeah, you know what? She's like, she had some kind of procedure where she got an epidural. And she says she got a spinal headache from it. And I was like, girl, I don't know what that is, but I better not have it. And so, oh shit, I already put, whoops. So she's like, let's get you back in bed and I'm gonna call the anesthesiologist. I was like, okay, good. And this sounds like it took a long time, but this was all super fast because this whole time everybody's in the room with the baby. I had held her and I think I fed her for a little bit, but I had barely enjoyed her whatsoever at this point. She's like, let's call the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist comes in. He's like, so you're not feeling good? And I'm like, don't you see me, homie? No, I'm not feeling good. And he's like, okay. He's like, what I think you're experiencing is like, is a spinal headache. And I was like, boy, what's that? So basically what happened to me was his fault on top of that. But I guess a spinal headache, well, not I guess, a spinal headache is a freaking headache from the epidural. That's why I will never get an epidural again, and that's why I will never have kids again. And it's caused from spinal fluid leaking out through a hole. What happened in my case is that the first time that he went in and tried to do the epidural, when he took it back out, I don't know how, I don't know what happened, but that hole didn't close. So he did a second one, and that one was the one that the epidural was in. Well, the whole time that I was with the other epidural, the first hole he had done was leaking my spinal fluid. And what's so weird is that while I was like numb, I felt cold back there. Like I felt wet, and I remember I'd moved and I was like, what is that? And I was like, okay, well, I'm numb. So sorry, my camera turned off because it got too hot. But I don't know, I was like, I'm numb, maybe it's just me like thinking stuff. So I never said anything. Well, yeah, it was leaking spinal fluid, so that causes a headache. So then he comes in, he's like, we're gonna have to do, he's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to just try medicine? And he's like, another thing we can do is a spinal tap, or a blood patch, I'm sorry, a blood patch. And I was like, what is that? So this, he had to go back in like another epidural. While the nurse was in front of me, she had to be taking blood out of my arm, and they had like seconds to pass it to each other and him put it into my back and like basically, I guess, like close the hole with my own blood. Let me tell you, that shit hurt. Like it hurt. She's over here poking me and she's like, don't move, it's really critical. I guess it's even worse for you to move in this one than the epidural. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like at this point, the baby was in the back crying because she was hungry. Daniel was freaking out. I was freaking out. Everybody was out of the room. And then, so they're doing it, and I asked her, I was like, how bad is this gonna hurt? And she's like, it feels uncomfortable, but it's not too painful. She's like, I got it done. You're gonna be fine. I was like, okay. Well, they're doing it, and I'm sitting here, and like, just like an epidural, like I had to look down, all that jazz. Well, while they're doing it, I started to get a really bad pain on the back of like my shoulders, and I was like, oh. And he's like, what's wrong? Does it hurt? I was like, yes, it hurts. And he's like, oh, I forgot to mention, you're gonna feel pressure on top of your back and then on the bottom. And I was like, homeboy, like, you forgetting a lot of stuff. And so it hurt pretty bad. It just felt like a lot of pressure and like burning kind of. And it wasn't too long, it was just like an epidural, but I had to stay still, all of that. Well, finally it's in. They're like, okay, now you have to lay flat on your back for an entire hour. I just had a baby, held her for like 10 minutes for some pictures, fed her a little bit, and that was it. They're like, yeah, you have to lay down for an hour, you can't move, nothing. I was like, okay, whatever. So they lay me down, and then my poor baby starts screaming her head off that she's hungry. I really wanted to breastfeed, so I was super adamant on like, no, you're not giving her formula. The pediatric nurse was like, we're gonna give her a bottle because she needs to eat, and I'm like, no, you're not. And you know, Daniel and I hadn't really talked about that as much, so he didn't know that I was like, he knew I was serious about breastfeeding, but he didn't know that I was like, no, no bottle. So then my poor baby's hungry. I'm laying flat. The nurse is like, if you want, she's like, I can help you feed her. You're laying flat, but I'll put her on you and I'll, you know, hold her so she eats. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my poor baby. So there I am laying flat, freaking dead, can't move, and my baby's eating, but it's fine because she got to eat. While this whole time I've been looking up at myself. I'm so sorry. That's so annoying. And an hour passes by and they're like, okay, well, now you can sit up and we'll see how you feel, try to walk, all of that. I was like, okay. Mind you, that morphine shot on my butt hurt. Forgot about that. So then, you know, I could get up now, and then people start to come in, and I'm sitting here like I tore. Ellie, like, you know, I tore. I'm in pain down there. My head is hurting. My back is hurting. I had IVs like all over my arm. I was super bruised. And people start to come visit, and I'm feeling okay. And then I'm laying with the baby. Everything's fine. My fiance's mom comes, and they're moving us to our other room. Well, when they move us, I'm feeling okay, and I got to carry her and all of that. Well, I get into my next room, and I'm like, I have to throw up. I threw up probably another 3 times. The headache was still awful, so they're like, just keep laying flat. Don't stop laying flat. I was like, okay. I laid down. When I was laying down flat, I was fine. I didn't feel the headache. I was perfectly fine. As soon as, like you're laid down, as soon as I started to do this, I just felt all of it right here. Okay, so sorry if the quality changed and now it looks like bad, but my camera died and I have to go get Sebastian, so I want to finish this video. That same night I had her, Daniel's brother and sister-in-law came over, and it was already late. It was probably like 9-10 at night, and I was just out. I wanted to sleep. I didn't want to see the light. I didn't want to talk to people. I was out, and I remember waking up because I heard the baby crying, and I heard them saying something about a diaper, and I was like, I like opened my eye, and his sister-in-law's like, sorry, Vidi, I'm changing her first diaper, and I was just like, and I fell back asleep, and like I just remember that, and I feel so awful because I had so many like plans. Like I had so many picture ideas. I wanted to do my makeup, I wanted to do my hair, I wanted, you know, like the whole pretty side of birth, and that was not my case whatsoever. The whole next day, I could barely eat. I was just laying down the whole time, and mind you, this whole time I'm bleeding out, I'm in pain, like I'm breastfeeding, and I stuck with breastfeeding. Like that was my main goal, was just to breastfeed the baby. And so I was able to, but nurses would come in and they'd be like, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I don't feel good. I really don't feel good. And they're like, and you're still breastfeeding? Wow, that's amazing. And I'm like, yeah, bitch, give me more morphine. Like, but it was bad. And so the day I was leaving, the doctor comes in. They're like, well, are you ready to leave? I'm like, no, my head still hurts. Like, I still don't feel good. I'm not ready to leave. But I had to leave. I mean, there was no other reason for me to stay. And so I had her on a Thursday. I had her on a Wednesday. I had her on a Tuesday. Wow. Sebastian was on Thursday. I had her on a Tuesday. I went home about Thursday. That whole weekend, I was in pain. I went home and I slept on my couch the whole first week of her birth. We slept on the couch because that was the most comfortable place for me. It was cooler outside too, in the living room. Couch was a little bit like more viejito, so it would sink in a little more rather than be completely flat. I didn't want to be like that. But my first shower in the hospital, I cried the whole time because my head, I would get ready hunched over like this, like just completely hunched over with my head looking down, because I didn't want to like put my head up, because if my head was up, it felt like I had to fall back from how heavy and how much it hurt. Like going to the bathroom, I'd go to the bathroom crying. Feeding her, I would cry. Mind you, this whole time I also had the pain of breastfeeding and, you know, sore nipples and all of that jazz. It's not fun, but it hurt, and I kept drinking Excedrin, Tylenol, what else did I take? And coffee. Like I literally had cups and cups of coffee next to me, and I had to keep drinking all of that. Or I did it round the clock, right on time, right on time. And my headache finally went away the following Wednesday. I had a headache for a week, a whole week. And this isn't a migraine like headache, like, oh, I can walk past it. I can still drive. No, it was bad. When I went to my pediatrician, or her pediatrician, her first appointment, she had her first doctor's appointment Monday because Friday they closed early. She had it Monday, and I walked in and I was talking to the pediatrician, and he's Sebastian's pediatrician too. He knows us. And he's like, how did it go? Oh my gosh, she's beautiful, this and that. And I was like, it was bad. He's like, why? And I was like, I got a spinal headache. And he's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He's like, those are the worst headaches you can get. I'm like, I think I heard that phrase probably like 3 times from different people. Like, that's the worst headache you can get. That's an awful headache. That's this and that. And it really is. Like, I'm not, maybe I am being dramatic, but I'm not. Like, if you get a spinal headache, you'll appreciate headaches. A little headache won't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. What? Yeah, my headache finally went away the following Wednesday. I was finally able to move around more, and it was just so bad. I probably left stuff out, honestly, but like I said, I had so many plans. Like, I took boards for pictures that I wanted, and I wanted this picture and that picture. I ended up just telling my cousin Anita, I was like, just take pictures, just do whatever you want. Like, I can't. And then my family that would come visit me, they'd like bring me food, like my uncles, and my mom was just calling me all day, seeing how I was. But it was awful, and now that's why we say I don't want more kids, because I don't want to go through natural birth, and I don't want an epidural. So I don't know how else this baby's coming out. I mean, that baby, no, we're not having more kids. It's just, it was an awful experience, the epidural wise, because I still felt it. Like, I went through all of that pain of the headache, and I still felt my birth. Like, I still felt all the contractions, and I still felt everything on that side. So it was for nothing. I suffered for nothing. Just kidding, I suffered for my baby. It's okay. That is my fancy dandy spinal headache story. That is awful. Thank you for watching.